Omaha Police is so short-staffed right now.
Are they?
Oh my God, unbelievably, they are.
What's
They
the
are.
issue?
They are short-staffed.
They're just not being paid
Like,
enough, or
No,
the
they're
conditions?
they're being paid enough.
What is-
70-some thousand out of the gate. But
Yeah.
here's the thing. It's just nationwide, departments are experiencing issues with retaining and recruiting. In Omaha, the solution that we have is by paying officers more and more to retain the brightest and the best. That's Omaha's approach. But the fact of the matter is that the community, like the police are very short-staffed. They are. It's call to call. When I was with Omaha Police, call to call to call. There's no closure on the call. You can go to a homicide, and the next call can be a car accident. You can go from a homicide to a cutting in progress. You can go from a cutting in progress to a domestic in progress. It's just, and there's no true time for community engagement.
Yeah.
There is no true time for true community engagement because you're just going call to call. And those photos of things happening with Operation Nets and that, those are officers or uniform patrol. They're dedicated to a beat, or not a beat, because they do have assignments for that, but they're dedicated to a district, and they work out of a precinct, and they are available to play and maybe take that photo, but that's not their permanent designation. And it's cool. It's great. Maybe they'll recruit some officers out of that interaction.
Do you think they have a shortage problem because of the negative perceptions that cops have gotten in the last several years?
There's a lot. It was the aftermath of the protests that you talked about. There's all sorts of issues. Any job that you have to worry about your life in, that's not a job that a lot of people want. That's just reality.
Yeah, you touched on something that really does resonate with me. It's like we give police officers a lot of responsibilities that don't really make any sense, and that's something I've always felt like we have a problem here. Having them try to police a mental health crisis situation they're not even mental health professionals.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a huge burden on them. And if we could just reevaluate what their responsibilities are supposed to be.
Yeah. The co-responders are nice. The thing that's interesting about the police department, we have in every precinct in Omaha people who are routine callers who have some sort of mental health disposition. And they call all the time for police services. I've had the opportunity to have sergeants and just upper command in general who are like, don't send those officers to the house because we know it's a person who's challenged mental health wise. And we're not saying the officers because we're scared of what the officers will do. It's more about, it's just a waste of officers' time. And so I like to see more of that, more policies that empower sergeants and upper command to say, we're not going to that call.
Okay.
But the way the law is basically now is if a 911 call is made, you can't refuse. You can't.
What about investing in like mental health?
Yeah.
Like locally, is there?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we will be having a dedicated mental health facility. I believe that it's being built just west, it's in West Omaha, just before 90th on Dodge. There's that whole mental health facility that's being built across the street from the Children's Hospital.
Okay.
But we need more mental health hospitals. Omaha does not do a good job at meeting the mental and physical health needs of its population of people.
Yeah.
A 15-minute drive from North Omaha will put you in a new America, and that's unacceptable. The distance between North Omaha, anywhere in North Omaha, and Millard, for instance, is measured by more than just miles. It's literally the difference between your life expectancy, job opportunities, educational opportunities, and whether or not you live in a food desert. And that shouldn't be the reality in Omaha. Certainly, that should not be the reality or the case in any city in America. We're the wealthiest country in the history of the world, and we can't even guarantee those things.
Yeah, there definitely needs to be more preventative services to alleviate those kind of things. And I remember hearing somebody say, like, why do people commit crimes? Like, what do these things stem from? And a lot of it too is like just from poverty, not having things and feeling the need to go out and do things, or not having preventative measures to keep you from going down the wrong track or things. And as far as like mental health and like police responding to it, I feel like I've seen so many videos of someone's having a mental health crisis and a police officer comes up on the scene and their mind first goes to, this person's under the influence of something.
Yeah.
It must be drugs. It must be alcohol. It must be something that's causing this person to act out like this. And there have been a lot of instances where force is used and someone loses their life, and it was something that was unnecessary in that moment. So that's something that I've always been interested in, how people continue to build trust between that. Because like you said, the perception of wanting cops to go out and play basketball with people might not be the best course of action to get to that, but just accountability.
It just feels sort of cliche.
But I feel like a lot of people feel like there's no accountability for cops. Like,
I mean, it's because of the nature of the job. It is such a challenging job. Like, okay, so here's law enforcement, right? Mm-hmm. And then there are people in the activist space, and I'm not knocking them, but they approach law enforcement under that historical context of like, we need to restore this and that. But law enforcement serves a whole nother purpose too. We need law enforcement services because there are real victims of crimes.
Sure.
There's child sexual assaults. There's all sorts of crimes. There are really bad people in this world, and that's one thing being a cop taught me. I'm a little jaded now because it's some of the things I've dealt with were just unbelievably evil.
Yeah.
And we need the police to do that and take care of those types of jobs. But we do need to deal with this piece of it. Mm-hmm. And that is the the history of abuse and racism and just all the evils that have come in the past from that people have, the people's lived experiences.
Could it also be like getting the right people in? Because you talked about like type A cops who get like a rush off of being in an authoritative like position. I guess.
Well, I had a state trooper tell me, I love North Omaha. I love North Omaha because I love to hunt. That's what he told me.
See, that's what I'm talking about. So, like, how do you go about weeding people out like that in the selection process?
Here's the thing. Yeah, that's important. But we can't say you got to be better at firing people because the power structure is so, it's just unbelievably powerful. Any job where the chief can fire you and you can get your job back, that's how powerful law enforcement institutions are.
I remember when they were trying to redo the budget, and I think this was maybe in 2020, 2021, around that time, and obviously in the heat of everything that was going on. And I remember they were trying to like change. You had activists advocating for like reallocation of funds within the budget, you know, because the police department gets a huge cut of the city's
they're most
budget.
of the budget.
Yeah.
Like over $250 million, something like that.
I remember Chief Schmarter saying, oh, if you cut our funding, don't call me when you need help, or don't call us for this or that. But it's also just, and Mayor Stothert was saying the last time this budget was redone, crime is at a low, but we still got to stay on top of it. So we need to increase the budget. So to the point where it's just,
yeah, go ahead.
To the point where it's just like, at what point does this piece of the pie go to preventative measures instead of just fully response? And I'm not expecting you to answer that question, but it's just, you know, it's a lot.
The reality is that you got, and you can be a one man, or you can go in there as a single council member. It's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. It's not going to happen. You're not going to defund the Omaha Police Department to the extent that people want. But I will say this. Any significant cut to the budget is going to hurt Black and brown communities. Period. Only reason I say that is because I've seen it firsthand of how even just by us even being short staffed, how they had to restructure. They literally had to take people off of Criminal Investigations Bureau and reassign them to the streets. Mm-hmm. So all those specialty investigation positions that deal with like homicides, that deal with fraud, that deal with all these special, like these outside of the day-to-day report call that go into reports that need to have follow-up, all those positions, a lot of those officers have been, many of them will get reassigned to the street. So I get, but in the meantime, we need something to maintain, if there is a crime, we need officers to be able to respond to those calls. If there is a homicide, like a shooting, we need officers to be able to respond. Because right now, sometimes there's calls holding citywide for priority calls. There are like no cars available citywide.
How many officers are on the
So if someone's getting
now?
the shit beat out of them by their husband, a domestic in progress, officers that are tied up on other calls, as long as they'll break away from them and expedite to a call, like priority, like lights and sirens. But there's a lot of instances where you know, and the city might not like me saying this, where there's no cars available citywide. They literally broadcast it. There are no cars available citywide. There's this call holding. If you're available, please switch to this channel. It's a whole process behind the scenes.
How many cops are on the force?
The authorization force of Omaha Police is 1,000. I think they're short by a couple hundred.
So you're saying there's a time where there's like all 1,000 cops are like out on the. I guess it changes.
No, they're
by
not
who's
all.
on shift.
No, listen. So the authorization force is how many officers we can have in terms of Omaha police officers, not based on what they do in their roles, but just the authorization force. That's how many officers we can have.
So on the street.
Not on the street.
But what I'm saying, so on the street, there's just a few hundred then at a time?
Yeah, because not even that.
Wow.
It's not even a few hundred. No.
Look at Tommy's face.
No, some of these, that's the thing. They're not a few hundred, because you have to think about, when we think about police, we think about Uniform Patrol Bureau. Those are the guys that take your 911 calls. But when we talk about even if we had 1,000 strong, our numbers will look good on the street. But here's the thing: that doesn't mean that there's 100 officers in any given day on the street. There's probably about 40 to 50 to 60.
You're kidding.
No.
No, you're not serious.
That is
I'm
an
serious.
amazing piece of information.
Because there's different shifts. There's different.
I mean, I could get that. Okay, so what is it, like an 8-hour shift?
Yeah, but but normally they have 2 different shifts. So like sometimes they come in, but no, they're at any given moment there's probably about not even 70 officers on the street.
What's the population of Omaha? Like
400 something.
400 and some.
Omaha
close to
proper.
1 million, but metropolitan area 1 million, close to 1 million.
Yeah.
But here's the thing:
40 to 60.
Oh yeah.
That's crazy.
And some of those guys are running skeleton crews. There's for a whole precinct for all of South Omaha, because they have different. So they have A, B, and C shift, but B shift might have 2 different shifts because they want to make sure there's constant coverage. Every shift has more than one. Every crew A, B, C, they have more than one shift because they need to make sure there's overlap. And yes, there are not more than 100 officers on the street. It's never been that case.
That is an amazing piece of information.
Yeah.
There are cops out there that are, you wouldn't believe it. There's some crews that are running 6 officers dealing with the entire precinct, all of South Omaha by themselves.
Man, that's making me wonder about what's going on here in Lincoln now.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
That isn't it. I've never heard that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm telling you. So when we talk about defunding the police, just because their budget is that big, there's a lot of technology, obviously, the helicopter, all these different.
They have horses,
to maintain a police department, it costs a lot of money. But what I'm saying is the reality on the street, the day-to-day of the uniformed patrol guys that are taking those calls, some of them are running skeleton crews because they're so short.
So why don't they talk about that? So when they came up with defunding the police, which is...
It's a bad word for what they meant.
It's a bad word for what they meant. Hey, can't we reallocate funds to preventative services instead of... But, it's a mouthful.
I think we just need to allocate funds to those services. We need to make it a priority of ours to allocate funds to those services.
From where?
We have money. I mean, look at all this money, this investment that's going in Omaha. We're spending millions and millions of dollars on all this. We have money. The city has money. The city is making a lot of money.
Okay, so then let's talk
It's just about what is a priority of the city and the mayor and the administration and the council members, like I said. But I'm telling you, the reality is, as an officer, we've literally, sometimes you have to play catch up on calls.
So why don't they talk about that?
I don't know.
Could it be like, we don't want people to know that it's actually, we want to maintain a forceful presence? Like, we want people to know that we're out here, even though we're not really out here?
Oh,
I mean, if I was the mayor,
so if you get, Omaha Police, they're not even, their hands are so tied. If you pull a car over during a prime time, you're going to get hung by your crew. They're going to be like, you're stupid. Why would you pull a car over? We got calls holding. There's no time for enforcement activity even. Most of the enforcement, traffic-wise, will come from the Omaha Police Traffic Unit because they're dedicated to that kind of that work. But outside of that, these uniformed officers that are working on the streets, they are, holy crap.
You need to get elected.
Yeah, today. It's not that it's just a reality. It's about how do you approach these situations. Sure, we can have people that say, I want to defund the police, but what the hell does that mean?
Yeah, I know.
Where are we going to get with that?
The worst.
I want to talk about things that are actionable, and if you're not going to get away with defunding the Omaha Police Department. It's just not going to happen to the extent that people talk about and certain activists talk about. We got to navigate this in a really we have to be strategic about this to get what we want. If we voted like we want it to, then we can get what we want how we want it. But
that was a big problem for the presidential election, is you had a lot of people who were very passionate, but they don't show up to vote.
Exactly.
But no, that's a very interesting piece of information.
That is wild.
Yes.